Isolation and loneliness. It's something that we're all facing in the current world, with COVID threatening any lockdown at any time. It's safe to say that people have been struggling with mental health. Isolation is something we've all felt in the past year. This theme can be used to propel your story. Think in Toy Story, in order for Buzz and Woody's relationship to begin, they needed to be left behind a dino code to push the story forward. However, isolation and loneliness in this context is used as a plot device. But what happens when this theme is used as part of the narrative? I will look at the forms of media to see how this theme is used, using Vortex. Joker, released in 2019, directed by Todd Phillips. Interstellar, released in 2013 and directed by Christopher Nolan. The Portal series, released by Valve, with the first game coming out in 2007 and the second in 2011.
Well, this is the part where he kills us.
Hello, this is the part where I kill you.
And Shutter Island, directed by Martin Scorsese, released in 2010.
I've had enough of this bullshit. Where's my partner, huh?
This theme is used across these four texts in completely opposite ways. Take similar themes like the hero's journey, where they tend to follow a pretty linear story. Yes, they have twists and turns throughout there to make it seem interesting, but they tend to follow the same structure. Joker is a psychological thriller / character study that largely shows the theme of loneliness. Arthur Fleck thinks that nobody is there to help him and he refuses therapy. It isn't helping him, he gets mocked for his dream of being a comedian, and is laughed at by his idol. He feels truly alone until he finds his purpose. That purpose, murdering the man who he once idolized and creating the poor citizens of Gotham to rise up. This film, well, unlike what most people actually assume, would be a fight between Batman and Joker, or a Joker origin story. But just like in the comic that defines the Joker's character, The Killing Joke, Joker says, "If I'm going to have a past, I prefer to be multiple choice." That quote throws the backstory he was giving in this comic out the window and works in this movie. DC has said themselves that they don't want to give Joker backstory, and the ending of Joker is a perfect representation of that, with Arthur in therapy, making you question if the events in the movie were actually real or not, as a few inconsistencies line up. But yet we know that Joker is himself, considering as he's walking out, he's tracking bloody footprints of the therapist who he presumably just killed. A few of the parts that help show this theme usually come from Arthur himself. Here's a few quotes.
"You don't listen, do you? I don't think you ever really hear me. You just ask the same questions every week. How's your job? Are you having any negative thoughts? All I have are negative thoughts. But you don't listen anyway."
Now compare this quote to something he says towards the ending.
What do you get
I don't think so.
when you cross
I think
a
we're
mentally
done
ill
with your
loner
jokes.
with
That's
a
it.
society that abandons him and treats him like trash?
Call the police,
I'll
Gene.
tell you what you get.
Call the police.
You get what you deserve.
It carries the same message, but in a much different tone, as if, as he says, he found himself. These quotes come straight from Arthur. He hates his life and is constantly feeling depressed because nobody gets him, and his final step into insanity comes when the girl who we've constantly been seeing Arthur go on dates with turns out to have all happened in his head when he enters Sophie's apartment and vents to her. She's genuinely worried about her and her child's safety to the threat of this man who just appeared in her living room. These all play into the chain that sends him off the deep end. After he loses everything and is on his own, we get a glimpse at this isolated man refusing treatment. After Joker takes his first victims, you get to see how this man goes to the point of no return. With instead panicking to get rid of the murder weapon, he breaks out into dance in a slow, methodical manner, comparing to when Joker is what remains. He lets free. This man has gone insane and won't accept treatment. He is truly alone. While Joker's an origin story of the character Joker, taking it into the wider world, the rather convoluted moral of the story is to forgive others and to not take revenge. While it's hard to see that moral throughout the film, with Arthur's constant murder to everyone who wrongs him, a co-worker of him gives him a gun to protect himself that leads to Joker getting fired. Rich members of Gotham start abusing him. Arthur finds out that he is adopted and has been lied to his whole life. His mother and actually abused him as a child. Murray, a man that Arthur idolized, shamed him on his show. All these people wronged Arthur in one way or another, leading to him getting revenge, even letting a witness of one of his murders go as they never wronged him. These details help create Joker's insanity and help tip him into the mental isolation and loneliness that he has, which is actually a point that I'm going to be going further into when talking about Shutter Island. Shutter Island is a movie based on the book Shutter Island, written by Dennis Lehane. Lehane? I think it's Lahani. I think that's Lahani. Okay. Isolation and loneliness is shown in a rather subtle way, which you see with knowledge of the film's plot. So a quick rundown on the plot. Teddy Daniels and Chuck Ale, 2 US Marshals, are sent to an asylum on a remote island in order to investigate a disappearance of the patients, where Teddy uncovers a shocking truth about the place. Teddy is actually a patient at the asylum with delusional disorder. Now, how is isolation and loneliness shown other than Teddy being isolated on an island? Revealed in the ending is that Teddy feels guilty for his children's death, as he ignored his wife's symptoms. Combining that with his guilt of killing his wife makes him feel truly alone and go insane. In my interpretation of this text, Teddy created his own demons, he let his actions consume him, and tipping him over the edge. Teddy feels guilty for the death of his children as he ignored his wife's symptoms. Combining that with the guilt of killing his wife makes him feel truly alone and go insane. My interpretation of the text, Teddy creates his own demons, he lets his actions consume him, tipping over the edge, making him mentally isolated and alone, shutting off and turning insane. The usage of fire and water relates to this theme, with water relating to the children's death and the scenes that take place in reality, compared to fire, which is the lies that Teddy tells himself with his delusions, all taking place surrounded by water, bringing reality crashing down around him. Teddy refusing to face his reality and break out of his mental isolation because of the death of his family, compared to fire, which tells the lies that Teddy tells himself, with his delusions all taking place surrounded by water, bringing reality crashing down around him. Teddy is constantly being forced to face reality, but keeps on refusing to. While most stories would end with Teddy coming to terms, we see how afraid of the truth he is. As Dr. John Crawley, Ben Kingsley's character, says,
"You were committed here by court order 24 months ago. Your crime is terrible, one you can't forgive yourself for, so you invented another self."
Let's get down to the facts.
You've created a story in which you're not a murderer, you're a hero, still a US Marshal, only here at Ashcliffe because of a case, and you've uncovered a conspiracy so that anything we tell you about who you are, what you've done, you can dismiss as lies, Andrew.
As I've mentioned, he won't accept that fact, where even after making a massive breakthrough of him even admitting his real name and what he's done, he retreats further back into his delusions. He refuses to break out of his isolation. There are 2 usages of loneliness in this movie. For a movie where the protagonist has a partner, Teddy spends most of the movie alone, as that's the only way the narrative he's telling himself can move forward, being physically lonely. On the other hand, as I've mentioned over and over again, Teddy is mentally isolated, refusing to face his actions, and unwilling to accept that his actions have consequences. But he can't fully ignore everything that he's done. Teddy has a fear of water, which relates to his actions. So while he constantly tries to fuse it, he keeps having to face his fears as he's isolated on an island surrounded by water. He can't escape the truth no matter how hard he tries, because reality is constantly being brought down, crashing onto him. As I've referred to over and over again, Teddy mentally isolates himself, shutting himself off from reality and coming up with a false story to hide him from his sins. This is how he's mentally isolated in this text, going so far as to actually abuse characters, but when he comes face to face with them, in his story, and that these are just crazy people. He doesn't know these because he refuses to accept reality. So it's isolation that he's creating is making excuses for this. These 2 films, Joker and Shutter Island, shows how this theme is used in a darker tone, how the loneliness and isolation that these characters face create their demons. In a way, the isolation of how alone these characters can either be the catalyst or the beginning of the domino chain to these characters' tipping point. With Joker, one person who wronged him started the domino chain that led to his purpose. Compare that to Shutter Island, one bad day turns a once respected man into a delusional and aggressive man, refusing to accept what he has done and constantly retreats further and further into his delusions. They use these darker tones of the theme in a psychological way to create more mature dark stories that actually can help, in a way, bring people and make people seek the help they need. Isolation and loneliness. The theme is used to help progress the story. Valve does an incredible job at creating some of the most critically acclaimed games out there with incredible stories, with the protagonist being you, allowing you to project your thoughts onto what's happening. The theme is being used to help progress the story as the main motivation, here to show that no matter how bad your situation it may seem, which I go into a lot more detail later on. While a large amount of the story is hidden in subtle ways you may not find your first time, these games do an incredible job of showing human determination by Valve's decision to make it so that your character will never talk. You're more invested in your attempts to escape, letting you project your own thoughts onto the character, and this is something that Valve excels at. While the slow reveal of Portal has been lost to time, where almost everyone has heard the fable, the cake is a lie, most people, when they played the game back then, had no clue that they were completely alone, but picked up on it through subtle clues. So let's go back to 2007 when the game first came out. When the game came out for the first time, though what makes you feel alone is amazing. So I want to walk through the games, pointing out the details that if you pay attention, give away everything at the start. The first game does an amazing job at making you feel uneasy. As the voice on the intercom welcomes you to the test that you're taking part in, it glitches out.
Injuries may occur. For your own safety and the safety of others, please refrain from Stand back. The portal will open in 3, 2, 1.
Not a big deal, and a technician is probably working on it right now. And as you continue through the test chambers, you take note of the countless empty observation chambers. All these details help make you feel constantly uneasy. It's only taken up a notch when you enter test chamber 8.
Please note that we have added a consequence for failure. Any contact with the chamber floor will result in an unsatisfactory mark on your official testing record, followed by death. Good luck.
Why would the people monitoring you need to be able to kill you for failure? Surely just touching the floor would suffice. After you finish the level, you start to notice that the panels and the lifts are disgusting. The entire facility isn't actually as clean as a testing track surely would be, and the monitoring rooms in every chamber have been empty with no signs of life. Then you get to test chamber 19, where as you're slowly being forced into a pit of fire, you manage to escape, with the voice saying this.
What are you doing? Stop it. We are pleased that you made it through the final challenge where we pretended we were going to murder you. We are very happy for your success.
This voice is actually conscious and isn't just preset voice lines, and only when you come face to face with GLaDOS, the AI who's been the only other voice in this entire game, you find out what happened to everyone.
You're kidding me. Did you just set that aperture science thing, we don't know what it does, into an aperture science emergency intelligence incinerator? That has got to be the dumbest thing that... Whoa. Good news. I figured out what that thing you just incinerated did. It was a morality core they installed after I flooded the enrichment center with a deadly neurotoxin to make me stop flooding the enrichment center with a deadly neurotoxin.
You are truly alone. There's not a single other person alive in this facility. There's still a second game about double the length of the first. This game doesn't use the theme subtly. After waking you up at least 50,000 years in the future, Wheatley, voiced by Stephen Merchant, a personality core, helps you escape Aperture, the facility that these games take place in. You accidentally reactivate GLaDOS.
Power up, complete. I don't. Okay, listen. All right, new plan. Act natural. Nothing wrong. Hello!
Oh, it's you.
Who doesn't take you killing her very well. GLaDOS kills Wheatley. You go through tests until you find out Wheatley's survived. You two make your escape and leave. At least that's the plan. You see, to escape, you have to plug Wheatley into GLaDOS's body, and he immediately goes mad with power. After the reveal that Wheatley was a core made to make GLaDOS dumber,
Could a moron hunt you into this pit? Could a moron do that? Oh.
he breaks the lift, letting you up to the surface, and you fall all the way down to the bottom of the facility, with your enemy now forced into a potato. Yes, it's a very weird choice. Your once glimpse of that freedom ripped away here from you. You explore the beginnings of Aperture Science. Once you climb up to the top of the facility again, you have to face off Wheatley. And after multiple attempts on your life, you face Wheatley. You almost die via bombs, shoot a portal to the moon, put GLaDOS back in charge, and she lets you go with one condition.
So you know what? You win. Just go.
I've discussed how this theme is used in a darker / negative way, and for the next two texts, I will be showing how this is used in the opposite way in more detail as a motivation for your character to be going forwards, as you saw with Portal. Christopher Nolan's Interstellar is objectively his best film. Christopher Nolan is largely known for creating films with unique and confusing premises, usually relating to time. Inception shows how time passes in dreams, Tenet shows an incredible concept known as time inversion, and Inception shows how time works in space. Now, Interstellar, despite showing the first hyper-realistic computer simulation of a black hole, as well as our first time seeing a black hole, outside of simulated photos as well as art renditions, Nolan uses this theme of isolation and loneliness, and is shown in two separate ways in this film, being used as motivation and portal for the crew we follow, and motivation to get back to their planets to save their families. This film creates some incredibly unique concepts, and in Christopher Nolan's style still leaves many questions unanswered for you to question, and it frustratingly confuses people for the next few years. In Interstellar, the crew of the Endurance is on a mission into a different galaxy to find a new habitable planet for Earth 10 billion light years away from Earth. This is the isolation that the crew has to face. This detail becomes more obvious when the crew lands on Miller's planet, because the planet's proximity to Gargantua, the black hole that this entire solar system orbits around, time moves differently to everywhere else, where 1 hour on this planet equals 7 years on Earth. In fact, Nostalgic did an incredible video going into depth about how the scene can be concealed to its own short film, but I don't have time to go over that because it doesn't relate. The stakes get set. This section is incredible. As the second they land on Miller's planet, the soundtrack starts playing the song Mountains by Hans Zimmer. Every 1.2 seconds, a tick is heard, which symbolizes a day passing on Earth. This song crescendos when the crew realizes those aren't mountains on the horizon.
Where's the rest?
Where's the mountains?
Those aren't mountains. They're waves.
Oh shit. Oh shit.
That one's moving away from us.
We need the recorder.
There are massive waves that are threatening their lives. Which one of their lives it gets. While the song is getting more and more tense, the drops of water getting replaced by the hands of a clock ticking, reminding us of the stakes that have been set. They aren't just fighting to escape the gigantic tsunami, they're fighting to see their families again. And while only spending just shy of 3 hours on this planet, 23 years pass on Earth. The following scene is incredible, having Cooper literally watch his children grow up and move on, being forced to watch 23 years of messages sent from his kids in minutes, simultaneously getting to meet his first grandson, and in a few seconds finding out his grandson has passed away. This is the positive way that the theme is used, with a man wanting to be able to save his family, showing this as the main motivation for Cooper. The rest of the crew is more happy to move to Plan B to save and protect mankind, whereby a human colony will be established via human frozen embryos. Meanwhile, Cooper isn't wanting to let humanity die and leave his family to die. The isolation that Cooper faces is his main driving point for him to keep going, to see his daughter and son again, which he does in an incredibly bittersweet ending, with Cooper only getting to reunite with his daughter on her deathbed, only getting to say his final goodbyes to a daughter whose life he was non-existent in. Interstellar uses real-life science and astrophysics, but what Christopher Nolan could be hinting at in this film is how time slips away, with two of his most popular films in a hidden way relating to his job. With Inception, the hidden story is about the filmmaking process, and Christopher Nolan sometimes just wanting to quit the job and go home. When you read into the subtext of this film, it could be interpreted as being grateful for the moment, as time easily slips away. Don't isolate yourself and live as much as you can. With days feeling shorter and shorter as you grow older, try not to focus on the future so much, and live in the moment. As Cooper faces his entire daughter's life disappearing, for him, it takes around a week. Ultimately, this theme is used in multiple ways. These texts use the theme of isolation and loneliness in varying ways, from darker ways that can take a psychological approach, such as Shutter Island or Joker, to a positive way, such as Portal or Interstellar, or even in a humorous way. This theme can be used in a near infinite way to create really unique stories. Some ways for just ticks that I can name off the top of my head: Far Cry, Lego Movie Part 2, Thor Ragnarok, Saving Private Ryan. This theme can help be used in a positive way as well, just going into the real world, helping people seek the help they need, helping people talk to the people they care about what they're going through. This is why, in my opinion, it's one of the greatest themes ever used.